My name is Yadvinder Malhi. I am Professor of Ecosystem Science at the University of Oxford. Welcome to my exp. One of the most profound insights, I think, in human history is an insight that's emerged over the last few decades. And this is that we live on a planet where humanity is no longer a minor player in a vast planet with vast oceans and vast atmosphere and vast forests, but now humanity is a major agent in transforming the basic nature of that planet and changing its atmosphere, its ocean, its biosphere. And that this transformation is occurring in many different ways. It isn't just about climate change. It isn't just about biodiversity loss. It isn't just about plastics and waste in the oceans. It's all of these things and much more put together. And there's been a recognition that there's a need to come up with a name, a way of thinking about this new planet that we're in, this human-dominated planet, to encapsulate it. And a word that's emerged over the last few decades is this word, the Anthropocene. The word uses the terminology of the geological timescale, where there are eons and periods and epochs. And by using this geological timescale, what this word is saying is that we've moved into a new geological epoch. What the Anthropocene is trying to do is to try and give us a mindset to recognize that the world is finite and we live as a large entity on a finite planet. One way to think about that is climate change was perhaps one of the first signals that we'd moved into the Anthropocene. When we started noticing that in the 1950s, that this carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere was climbing year on year. And this was linked to fossil fuel combustion and emissions from fossil fuel. That was the moment that we realized profoundly that the sky didn't go on forever. I mean, we all know that in terms of our science, that the atmosphere is finite, but in terms of our mindset, our psychology, we were still acting as if the sky went on forever, that you could dump waste into the sky and it would somehow dissipate. The humans are insignificant compared to the vastness of the sky. Similarly, we've presumed that the oceans are vast, that you could fish out the oceans, you could industrialize your fishing, extract more and more from the oceans, and the oceans would always provide. Similarly, the forests are so vast, so extensive that you could chop away, convert forests into farmland, and there'd always be enough forest left somewhere for the biodiversity of the earth. And what our Anthropocene is a recognition of the finiteness of all these boundaries. There is a tendency to think of environmental change as something that's slow and ongoing. That's an ongoing concern that we need to tackle over time. But certainly one framing of the Anthropocene, this idea that the Anthropocene began in the mid-20th century after the Second World War with this rapid surge of industrial activity, this framing of the Anthropocene says the Anthropocene is something new in human history. It's this rupture with the past where humans are now bouncing against the finiteness of the planet. And this requires fundamental and structural shifts in societies about how we think about how we design our societies, how we think and move away from models where eternal growth is seen as the most important good in societal economies, that increased consumption is seen as an inevitable target for societies over time. And what the Anthropocene mindset does is try and highlight that it simply isn't possible. It worked in the 20th century when we went from having a relatively slow small global footprint to a vast global footprint. And much of our economic models, our societal models are built on that 20th century model. But now in the 21st century, we're hitting the basic flaw in that model, that model presumes an infinite planet, and we don't have an infinite planet. And we need to start redesigning society at a fundamental level to work and sustain itself on a finite planet. The problem with climate denialism, I think, is also that it gets wrapped into a culture war, particularly, I think, in the US, to a smaller extent in other places, where denialism becomes part of your badge of identity, that you're suspicious of science, you don't believe in climate change, you don't believe in scientific expertise, and then many other aspects, and becomes part of your cultural and political identity to be suspicious of the collective scientific wisdom of society. And this is a real turning back on 200 years of scientific progress and enlightenment, a rejection of the scientific argument on the use of balanced evidence to try and see where we are, and to see as all evidence as partisan, as potentially suspicious, and not fitting all agendas as somehow carrying some sort of suspicious conspiracy-based agenda. And so how do we tackle it? I think we keep on going at it. We certainly keep the science at the core of the argument. So on the other side, it doesn't become a political agenda. It becomes about looking at the evidence, promoting the evidence, and using the scientific method as the core of any argument that's made.